Keiichiro Toyama had a concept that was flowing through his head in the early stages of his career. The initial idea was an image of people floating in space. This idea, however, never really came into fruition during his career at Konami. You see, Toyama was the original director of Silent Hill, and well, that's just kind of it. His history is basically behind horror games. With the Siren series and Silent Hill, you really wouldn't think that an idea like that would work. Despite that, Toyama decided he wanted to prove his ability to design games outside of horror. And well, here we are with Gravity Rush. Want to play in an odd yet beautiful world as a character who defies the laws of physics? Salutations! If you do not know who I am, my name is Ty, also known as the Courier of C69, and you are tuning in to my first and biggest delivery that I have presented so far. This may be a long one, so please get some snacks and some tea as we talk about the wonderful game known as Gravity Rush. My goal with this delivery will be to introduce you to this wonderful game and possibly convince you to try this hidden gem out for yourselves. I'll be talking about the development behind the game, the story, and the gameplay. Let's dive right into it. It was originally pitched to be for the PlayStation 3, but the development was eventually shifted to the PlayStation Vita because of a recommendation from a certain individual. If you ask me, this was quite the struggle, considering at the time, the hardware for the Vita was fairly new, and this put a lot of stress on the team. The staff size was dropped due to the shift, and priorities had to be reorganized to function with the unique features of the Vita. The main problem is the size of the world and the amount of content that was in it originally. Needless to say, this caused a lot of problems with development. After the team finally got it running on the Vita, they focused on polishing up the graphics and the gameplay. The game was released on the Vita in 2012 and was then remastered by Bluepoint Games in 2015, known for remastered collections. The one I personally played was the remastered version, as I don't really have any way to record footage from my Vita. I apologize. Gravity Rush is presented in an episodic format similar to comics and TV shows. Each episode contains details that thread together a bigger narrative, but most are self-contained stories that dictate the life of Kat and the people of Hexaville. Without further ado, here's the story introduction to Gravity Rush.
Echuman bi, chuleru tu etsura joto. Tu si, on sui echo.
The story opens up with our main character waking up in a park next to a cat. With no recollection of who she is or where she is, she wanders around the vicinity. After searching around a bit, she gets caught by a man who needs her help. His son is caught in a storm, and the only one who can save them is a shifter, an individual who can bend gravity to their own will. According to the man, the MC is similar to a girl with a crow, and that she is indeed one with those powers. Confused and reluctant to act, the cat takes over. The cat pushes the MC into a gravity shift and propels them into action. Using her newfound ability, she shifts closer to the storm in order to save the boy. A police officer tries to advance to the boy's location, but gets captured by a hand coming from the storm, swallowing him into the void. The MC pushes forward to save the boy and succeeds despite getting very close from being gobbled up by the eerie hand. After all of the effort the MC went through, the house that the family lived in was dropped down. She was blamed for the accident despite it not being her fault. She runs away with the family spouting about how shifters are nothing but rotten. Down the alleyway, the MC finds a door. After busting it down, it is revealed where our story takes place.
La suis m'achevé, et je crois plus affiché de Wansi. Plat jujudu, plein chabiment de sa point chafé. De blessema, loetry, chaplain to the save.
This is just one of the many episodes that take place in the universe of Gravity Rush. The way the story is presented is in a comic book fashion, with the occasional in-game rendered cutscene. I honestly really love it a lot. It feels like I'm reading straight out of a book, and every episode feels like a new issue in the series. It's very unique and different to any other video game I've personally played. I will say, I believe that the game would have probably had fully rendered in-game cutscenes if it was on the PS3. That being said though, I think it's better this way. It adds so much flavor and dynamic to the game. It brings me back to the days when I was younger and had so much time to read manga and comics. Anyway, let's talk about the gameplay. The game is an open world game. The player is able to move freely around Hexaville with some limitations. For example, you can't go all the way down into the abyss, nor can you go completely sky high. The storm eats you up and brings you back to the town. But otherwise, you can float freely in the sky, or even attach yourself to houses. You can even hang upside down. Your gravity powers use a gauge, and the gauge depletes as you move. You can also return to regular gravity by a simple button. This can lead to some really cool moments, and some funny moments too. You also have cool movement abilities when shifting gravity. My personal favorite is the gravity slide. It makes you feel like you're surfing through the city, and it's so damn awesome. When in gravity shift and floating forward, you can actually speed up your movement. I call this fast falling. Pretty neat, right? In Hexaville, your map will be marked with challenges to do. Some range from defeating enemies under a certain amount of time, and some are racing challenges that you have to battle against the time with some to no limitations. Personally speaking, I really like the speed challenges, as they tend to test your knowledge and your ability to perform your gravity tricks to their full potential. For example, the gravity slide speed challenges forces you to only use gravity slides and no other form of movement, making it so you can only compete with that specific ability. I really love that idea. The other aspect to the gameplay is combat. Kat will have to defend herself against the foes called the Nevi. In order to do that, she will need to fight. You can execute a regular combo, which is pretty cool, You can evade attacks and counter-hit enemies after evading. You can even attack enemies with the gravity slide. Another ability is called the stasis field, where Cat can pick up items and lunge them towards enemies. Cat also has a signature move called the gravity kick, and honestly, if you ask me, it's her strongest move. Learning how to execute this move perfectly can really make or break fights. You also have special abilities that you unlock throughout the game, but I won't spoil those moves. The Nevi stand no chance against this Gravity Queen. Now that we got combat out of the way, let's talk about the art direction and the music. The music was composed by the wonderful and amazing Kohei Tanaka. If you've ever heard of a wonderful series called Sakura Wars, then you are on the dot for this composer. Alongside Tanaka, additional help was made by Keiji Inai and Yasuhisa Murase. The tracks were actually worked on very early on in the development of the game, so the music with the gameplay coexist together and flow very well. Their work on this game is absolutely incredible. A lot of the tracks feel very different to each other, and there's so many different instruments. It really reflects the odd and strange nature of Hexaville, just different genres with this moving world. The artist for this game is Yoshiaki Yamaguchi. He worked on the Siren series prior to this game. A lot of the inspiration for Hexaville drew from comics, using a line drawing method to outline buildings and allowing them to be more easily recognized. They used the game's graphic to show necessary information, but exaggerate it to make it flow and feel lively, making the world feel interactive. A living background was the concept, bringing the game world itself to life, a sensation that can only be brought to life with a video game. The main characters were designed by Shunsuke Saito. Cat in particular was actually a design the team thought really hard about. They wanted to make something more accepting in the Western audience, so if they made something that was too familiar with an Eastern audience, they would lose attention from other areas. They wanted a female protagonist, but they were also unsure if that would work considering that at the time, female protagonists were very far in between. The character that came into mind was actually Lara Croft, and she was pretty well accepted. The key factor was to make a character that was unique, tiny, and very strong. Thus, Cat's design was made. They nailed it because I think she really shines as a main protagonist. She really sells the game with her design. The style and cell shading was influenced by comics from France, specifically work from Mobius. I'll showcase some of the works that I personally feel connect a lot with Gravity Rush. It's honestly fascinating how this inspiration shines through. So for this part of the letter, I'll be going on a tangent about a certain thing in the game. There will be some spoilers, so if you don't want that, consider clicking away from the video and coming back when you finally finish the game. If you don't really care, well, keep watching. When the game is completed, you get to hear this really beautiful song, and the only lyrical song in the game. The song is called Je suis le Ivolu Balela, which is sung in the made-up language for the video game. I was very much interested in the lyrics, and when I did my research, I started to understand a lot more about the development history of this game and the struggle the team had to go through. Toyama himself wrote the lyrics while Kohei Tanaka composed the music, and the song was sung by Masako Toda. The lyrics are a reflection for how the development was not going so well, and to make things even worse, this was around the time of the 2011 Tohoku earthquake. During this crucial time, Toyama was acquainted with death. Despite that though, he thought to himself, one day we will die, and all worries will be gone, so why not enjoy the moment without thinking too much? And thus, the lyrics were made with that specific idea behind it. I resonated a lot with this thought process, and I have a very similar feeling. There's so many stressful things in life, and oftentimes we get very frustrated and lose track of what's important, to just enjoy life without having any worries. It's a really nice thought, for real. With that being said, this concludes my first grand delivery letter to you. It was honestly such a blast writing this up, and I had a lot of fun researching the game. I hope this video has convinced you to go and try out Gravity Rush. If you don't own a PS4 or a Vita, maybe you can consider watching my playthrough on Twitch. I'm often streaming on there and I would love to have you over. I hope you all have a great evening or day. Consider this delivery an approved one.